I am so excited. We
Yay.
have our very new friend,
yes.
who I'm sure will be a lifelong one on the podcast today, and that is Whitney Walpole. She is the founder and president of Culture Counts. So we already love her because she cares about culture.
It's a big thing.
Yay,
It's a
Whitney,
big, yay!
welcome.
Welcome, Whitney.
Yay!
I love it. Thank you for being here. Would you share with us a little bit about Culture Counts, about kind of your passion around the work that you do and what matters to you?
I love that last thing, what really matters to me. I love that. So Culture Counts we're really focused on leadership development, and we focus on leader teams in small entrepreneurial companies, like 150 people or less or so. And what I am particularly passionate about is what it really takes for groups of leaders, not just one leader, although it's something for that too, but what does it take for a group of leaders to be able to come together, hear each other, respect everybody at the table, bring that wisdom together, but also be effective and efficient about being focused on what really matters and being able to execute on what really matters in both an efficient way and a deeply satisfying way. So that work is something that we love. And we produce a lot of results. So that's really the context of our work, is we really help leaders to be able to have that kind of interaction so that they can produce those kinds of results and have a culture where they're really being and experiencing what matters most to them. So I would say what matters most to me is that the leaders that we work with really get to express that and fulfill on that. In a way that also, where they make great money too. Which
Right.
I love money.
So, I love that. Love that. And in fact, there's two things that you said that really resonate for me. And the first is where they can hear each other. That was huge for me because, we're also very passionate about having good conversations, being able to be intentional with the way that you speak, and also having to tackle, our brains are super distracted. And so how do we really hear each other, and how do we listen to understand the other person as opposed to just respond to them? That was the first thing. So I love that. And then the second thing that you said was this idea that, a team can come together and be productive and execute on that. And, that all to me is unfortunately what we don't see enough of, I think, in business. When some of the most recent research is out there, about 58% of leaders in a few different polls had said they never had any training to be a leader. And so they're just put in this role as a leader because they're performative for whatever reason. And then they get there and they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you're doing this.
It's really great. And you know what I love, just to build on what you said, there's a way that, and I think it's because this was my experience, I did not have training. I'd been a leader in my life, but I had not had a lot of formal training. And then I started a business. And I learned a lot on the field. And my experience is most of us, that's true for. And for most of the leaders, I don't know if this is true about leaders you all work with, but for the most of our clients, they're not new at the game. They're productive. They're doing a lot of stuff, and they're really busy. So I love to develop leaders and to have them be able to learn on the job. So so much of our work is about having the training happen while they're working on the business. So it's just, I think if they think they can go, to a week thing, long a thing, or a weekend or something, it's just hard to integrate that. So I think the challenge is, how do you integrate what you learn in the day-to-day and do it as a group and not just as a one-off? So
I love that. So
at least that's what it took for me.
I think what's hilarious for us is when we go in to work with leaders, that we will often get can we fix this in a week, or can we fix this in a 2-day class?
We have a half day.
Yeah, we have a half day. Can you get this problem fixed? And our response is often, how long do you think it takes to play the piano? Or how long do you think it takes to play golf? And one might argue that it takes you your entire life to play golf. So that is definitely
to become a master. Yeah,
he's still working on it.
I mean, it's funny that we think these skills are like, communication skills, soft skills. They're so easy.
Just slap that on.
I don't need to worry about that.
Just put that on.
Yeah, that's right. Once I take your class, I'm fine. And I love to hear that the integration is over time, as opposed to in this small little window.
I'm so grateful for the years where we had our software company. I kid you not, the lessons were brutal for me, at least. I mean, I would say we had really big highs, big lows, all kinds of stuff. And I'm so grateful for that because I had read a lot of books, thought I knew a lot about leadership. I thought, I don't understand why people just don't blah, 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 blah. Well, I know now why they don't. It's freaking hard. And I don't know if it's faster than it used to be. I can't say, everybody, it seems like every generation thinks, oh, we're more busy than usual. That may be true. And it's just, I have so much compassion for the desire and the pressure to get a lot done and to develop. And most of the people that I run into, I don't know if, again, this is true for you all, but I run into freaking fabulous leaders who do have an interest and commitment to the inside game and the outside game, which is kind of what we call it. And they just literally don't know how to put it together. And nor did I. And that is, it's so helpful to have, well, for us, this is part of what we love to share and to help people do, but I think other people do it as well, which is you got to take a chunk at a time and you've got to have wins along the way or you cannot stay the course. You can't learn golf or piano if you're supposed to be, playing Beethoven's Fifth by the time you're in, week 2. And you also, I was just talking to a client today about what I think his team needs in the next year. They're really getting the concept of some things, but they don't have the conscious competence and the muscle memory. And that's going to be really hard because it's going to get discouraging. So I'm not even banging them on them about, you need to take, I'm just like, it's just, you want to have compassion for yourself because you got to have one win after another to stay the course. Lord, at least I do.
Yeah.
So I just feel a whole bunch of compassion,
Yeah.
What does a typical engagement look like for you? Kind of how are you taking your clients through the culture count experience, and what are maybe some of the details that you work with them and kind of help them with?
Yeah. Well, so a couple things. We have 2 entry points now. It used to always be that we would get a call from, the people that we end up serving are the CEO, really. Even if somebody else, like an HR director, calls us, it's for the CEO who has an ask. Because from my perspective, my job is to get them what they want because I trust that what they want is what is going to be good for everybody. And we just don't work with clients who that's not true for. So my job is to serve them. And so what it looks like is we'll get a call and usually it's something like, often they want a retreat, which is one of my big sweet spot areas is I'll lead a retreat, and they want their team to up level and also be able to manage a whole nother set of variables that are on the table because usually they're in some kind of growth mode or the landscape has changed and they've just acquired somebody and they've got a lot fast. Often an entry point for me is listening to what is the first step that would get them a win. And often it's a retreat or like a one day where the team does a couple of things it's a big part of our work. You heard me talk about it earlier, which is first a big thing for us is you got to get up current reality. We call it current reality. It's our leadership model. You really get up everybody's current reality in a very authentic, emotionally, both intellectually and emotionally. And you've got to do it in a way that has people actually have a lift of energy, which is not always easy to do. So I compare teams like great sports teams. And I think my guess is you guys love this too, because you're so full of aliveness, engagement, but it's really like, think about this like a great sports team where instead of doing a SWOT analysis, we do what's called a wins, losses, lessons learned. And it just brings more of an emotional thing and people share the good, the ugly, the proud. They don't have to prove it. And we teach them a couple of skills of how to just hear each other without pushing back, agreeing or disagreeing. And we get current reality up, which usually starts to transform a team because they have not gotten on the same page in such a robust and energizing way. And so that's our first step. And then we go to now what's possible and what is it that you really want? And we get everybody's wants up that we can get them together to find a cohesive we want, but from a fresh level set. And people say things they've never said because once you've cleared or completed the past, my guess, again, you guys know this, once you've got the past in the past and it's neutral, you can create what you've never created before because you don't have as many limits in front of you. So we really then get up possibility and an on the ground plan for who this team wants to become, what they want to do and how they're actually going to do it. So you can hear that's often a half day, a full day, or a retreat. So that's one big entry point for us. I typically, my sweet spot work is to help the team get on the ground with that for a year or two after. So they build the muscle memory inside and outside to do that. bringing all these skills in. Our other entry point is breakthrough conversations. So sometimes we'll just get a call and people will say, we're not hearing each other. And we'll say, the best thing for you to do is to take your leader team through our breakthrough conversations program, where you learn the fundamentals of conversations. But again, because our work is always training with real business, it's a series of sessions over weeks where they bring real business topics to the training. So they're actually working on their toughest business topics while they're learning this roadmap and tool set. So often they have such a huge transformation around that because they just weren't able to talk. And then we really know what to do with them, meaning the landscape is more clear because they're more clear. Yeah. So we design our work based on those two entry points typically. And so is that clear? Yeah. How clear was that?
That's
okay, great.
That is so awesome. Thank you for that.
And I wanted to, because you and I in our pre-conversation had a specific person that you wanted to call out with breakthrough conversations.
Oh, yes.
You want to mention Sarah now?
Thank you, guys. I do. So I want to say, so Sarah Carr is really, how she lives is like a partner for me, and in our work. And she came along about 10 years ago when I was frustrated with not being able to do certain things. And she's like a master trainer, been a trainer in corporate settings for years. And together we co-created this thing called Breakthrough Conversations. And it was really only supposed to be for our clients. And then it got such traction across all of our clients across the country that people started asking for it in all kinds of forms. And she's really the master trainer for that. So I just wanted to call her out because many people know Culture Counts. They usually know it through Sarah or through Whitney. And then we've got other team members too, but Sarah's just people are big fans of her. So
that is so great.
Want to honor her. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So another question.
Oh, yes.
We do some similar work, not the same. Right. And in the kind of what we would consider kind of power skills space, soft skills, communication, emotional intelligence, etc. And and I love everything you're saying. I'm so excited. I feel like when we find our champions out there, like we're all in this together to try to just see this sparkly world.
Place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I know a lot of what your focus is definitely having those conversations, teaching that toolkit so folks can have their go-to resources to make that happen. What would you say is kind of our biggest challenge? And maybe since COVID happened and we've had this massive shift in like in-person, hybrid, completely remote workforces, what do you see, I guess, is the greatest challenge there? It seems obvious it would be the way we communicate, and maybe that's what you're going to answer. I don't know. What are your thoughts on how that has evolved into challenges for us in professional world?
It's really great. I'm actually going to do a skill here, but not because I'm trying to do the skill for you guys, but because it's helpful for me. So I think you're asking me, what do I see as the biggest challenge for anybody or leader teams or leaders since COVID, or is that right? Or
yeah, I think leader teams or leaders is perfect. Yeah.
Okay, great. Or could even be for cultures and maybe general, but what is I see? Okay. The biggest challenge. Well, here's something I say often. And so I think this might be my answer. Let me hear what I say and see if I really think it. But there's in my own experience and in watching so many people now over the years, is that most people know what to do about almost anything. We know how to lose weight. We know how to get in shape. Most people know the do's and don'ts in communication. I've never found anybody that doesn't know these things. And when we get stressed, skill goes out the window because we get into that fight or flight brain and stuff you all know a lot about, just what happens to humans. So my thought is, since COVID, and we taught this before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID, our work, is that I don't see that I still think people and how people communicate is the biggest challenge. Sorting themselves out, how they talk to themselves and how they talk out loud to others is the biggest challenge we run into. And the thing that's different since COVID is, for me, you can make up more stories. There's more you make up rather than find out if it's really true when you're on Zoom, when you're not in person as much, because those cues aren't there. And I use that sort of like, I think everybody again knows you don't get those cues. Body language is different. You can't see people on Zoom. You can't feel the energy. And what you're doing is but I think it's amplified this whole thing that we talk about, which is there are the facts and then there's everything else that we make up. And I think there's just more to be made up without as much in person. So I think that's what's amped up the differentiator, at least from my perspective.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
I've never answered that question. I love that. Was a great question.
Thank you.
We were working with a leadership team last week, and part of they're a technology company. They do a lot of consulting. They are really challenged with getting people to turn on their cameras, right? So this concept that, hey, okay, so we know we're not going to work in person. We accept that. So the next best thing that we've got is to do what we're doing right now, right? So we can see you, you can see us. We get some of the cues, we don't get all of the cues. It's better than not having it. And they are having a cultural challenge of just people not wanting to put on their camera.
Especially clients.
Refusing to put on the camera.
Yeah. Oh, and interesting.
It's a really fascinating problem with today's world, where we've really transitioned to this concept of, okay, we've proven that people can work from home. We've proven that these digital tools can work. And we all know that they're not nearly as good. And we can't seem to mandate having a physical presence like this.
Boy, I so love what you all are saying. And the thing I'm cueing in on is this idea of the cameras not being on kind of points to this feedback that we either think we're getting or we are really getting when we can see people's faces and we can see eyes. And, of course, there's just a ton of science out about even what we do when we can see eyes, that without those cues, from my perspective, you have to be so much more intentional about checking out what you're thinking is going on over there. And so if people don't have the skills to go, we have done since COVID so much emphasizing on this is what I think you might have been saying or be thinking over there. Is that right? That's kind of like, if we could only teach one skill, it's often saying, I think you're saying this. Is that right? The is that right has somebody go, no, it's not. And there's all this clarification that happens when you don't have all those signals.
Right.
Because oftentimes you can see if you're not right because you can see that their face was like, whatever. You can't tell if you're getting it. And if you're not getting that right, everything else in the conversation is wrong, meaning it's off base. Yeah. So this intentionality about, I think you're thinking this, is that right kind of thing? I think, I've never thought about this. I love what you all are saying about this. It's sort of like, you just got to amp up your skill. If you're not going to get those signals, you better have a toolkit that you can amp up, whatever it is.
I 100% agree. Yeah. We actually often tell the teams, that we're working with, if you have an important decision to make on the call with the client or colleague, you really ought to feel confident enough to request that cameras are on if you're remote. And if you don't, and if it's information sharing and just clarification or just general kind of conversation, then it's nice to be able to say to someone, hey guys, let's do cameras off today. Let's give ourselves a break, because there is nothing super pressing that we all have to be staring at one another for. And I think that's super helpful. What you
I love that. Thank you for that tip.
Oh, I don't know. It's, it may or may not work, right? We just got to try stuff. What, in your experience, Whitney, what is something that has happened to you as a leader where you didn't quite execute the way you wanted to, that maybe personally you would have said, man, that was a big old failure. And then how did you recover from that, and move forward without just sitting in that? Because a lot of times, we sometimes just sit in the big failure, and which is important to look at, and we need to move out of it too. So I'd love to hear about an experience that you had in your past and how you moved through that.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is such a big experience that it's I've had lots of little ones since then, but my experience with my the software development company I had, and I would have told you I thought I was a great communicator, and maybe I was, except for that now that I have got more skill, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a lot I was missing. And I think the biggest, and I was young. I mean, there's just being young. So I think the biggest failure, and it really, when I say failure, the failure turned out, I mean, I ran this company with my husband at the time, who were still good friends, and a couple of my very best friends. And we had at one point, I think we had 30 people in our company. We had different sizes at different names, but half the people were some of my best friends. I mean, so there was like a level of intimacy, meaning we knew each other well. And we went through a lot of things together. And I would say that my biggest lesson, so the impact of when things didn't go well, it had a very big impact in my life because it impacted my whole life. And my family was involved, and investors. And so the not really finding out, making assumptions. I feel like I'm going to say about the most always said thing. I can't believe I'm about to say it, but I am about to say it. I really thought I knew what people thought about different decisions that were being made, and I didn't make sure I checked in. And the second thing that was a big, big error for me was I waited to say something when I didn't like something, like I really didn't like a deal breaker for me. I had some deal breakers that I didn't communicate about because I waited to get all sorted. Like I waited till I was completely some handled way inside myself about it before I engaged in a discovery conversation with my partners, because I didn't know how to do that. It was sort of like, if I said something, then it's over. And so I didn't actually get the chance to be creative about some things we could have been creative about. I think that ended up ending the relationship for me. I mean, we all ended up recovering. We're all friends now, but I left, and I did not have the skill, and it cost, it had some big costs for me. And interestingly enough, that catapulted me into much of the work I do now. Because the lessons were enormous, and I didn't check it out with my family. And later my family had to say things like, that wasn't easy for us. And I didn't have the skill to sort that out at the time. So I would say I waited, and which I notice a lot of teams do. They wait and they wait too long. And I just, again, have compassion. If I had known how, and if I'd been able to trust myself, I would have, but I literally didn't know how, and I didn't know how to trust myself to do it well. So I just didn't do anything, which was a disaster.
Yeah, it's scary, right? It's scary to tell an opinion. And we know this in our experience of giving feedback to people, or most likely not giving feedback to people. It's scary to tell the truth sometimes. And it can
really
just
is. Even if like I just had this thought, like my guess is you all as a couple, you get to share, you have so much shared things in your personal life, but you also have, because you work together, you share skill and context. So oftentimes in leader teams, one person might go to their Vistage group, or might go get a training, or might get some context, or whoever they do, but they don't have a shared set of language and a shared set of skill, which is, I think, again, what you all do as well. Which means I might feel safe, but I might say the first thing out of my mouth, knowing that I want to hear what you think. And then I'm not even landed on it, but we could maybe create something else. But I say something and they're like, oh, she's done. Or if you don't have shared context and skill, meaning, nope, we're only in the first part of a conversation. We've got long ways to go. We can stay the course with each other. I think it makes us feel less safe because we don't know, we don't have something we together can go, we're just in stage 1. It's okay. We're going to get to 3, whatever that is. It's like a trust fall and there's a lot at stake.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so true.
Yeah.
I love your background even before the software development company. And I'm curious. So we'll put it out there. You were a public school teacher. You taught 7th grade, language arts, and a coach. So obviously you coached.
Yes, I was a basketball and volleyball coach. Yes.
So I would like to know how much you think your experience as a public school teacher and a coach influenced the work that you do today.
Oh my gosh, completely influenced it. I think I gathered a lot of humility, which I think has been a key to my coaching. I literally always feel like what I say to my clients is for me. I know I get paid to say it to them or help them, but it's constantly my own set of lessons, which keeps me at the same level as my client. I'm an expert in some things, but we're in it together. And for me in public school teaching, I thought I knew a lot about, I wasn't even a parent yet. And I was like, I know what it is to, have this work with kids. And boy, I tell you, talk about fast feedback. Brutal. I got fast feedback from kids, from parents, and from my co-teachers. And by my third year, all of my great ideas, which were great, a lot of things I did were really great, but to get that kind of immediate feedback, and to deal with the emotional, and I don't know, I just couldn't hide anywhere. So I feel like one, I got really good at feedback, and receiving it and learning that I had to pivot. But the thing that I think that influenced me so much was what I was sharing with you all about. I just think it's the nature, maybe it's not true for all young people. I was just so arrogant in so many areas. And I still have my areas of arrogance that I'm sure I'm going to learn something about in the coming years, but was so arrogant about, why don't people just do this? Or why don't you just do this? And then and about leadership, about what it is to run something, about what really works. And there was a way that being a teacher, I thought, it was all about me. And I got to see that, no, it's also about the way things are designed, meaning how you set up a classroom, what you bring to people's attention, how you interact with people and then of course their influences at home. There's so many influences that don't need to make it complex, but I just learned, it's why I love in business, how you set up your team matters, how you set up a meeting matters, and how you show up matters. So there's like this inside outside. And it was my first real experience of, oh my God, structure matters and consistency of structure matters, but also all of the nuances of our individual personalities and emotions matter. And it was like this big wake up call of marrying the two is like a game of mastery. And I had it like in the face big time, like, oh my God, was I arrogant and I don't know my stuff about this. So that's maybe how it influenced me. I got really humble. I became a lifelong learner. And I also love the marriage of structure and process, simple structure and process, and inside skill development from the inside out. And it's influenced my work ever since. And it's what I also saw my family didn't have. Really great business growing up, but not as many skills. That softer skill stuff wasn't as big, when my grandfather was around. And I think that's what made the end very, 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 very difficult. So,
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. As we wrap up, one of our favorite things to ask leaders is, what is the best advice that someone has given you? Why is it the best advice? And, why did they give it to you? That's something, was it just like a random conversation? Was there a reason? So best piece of advice that's ever been given to you and why?
Okay. I'll say the first one. I had two and I was like, oh, which one? So I'll say the first one that came to mind. The biggest shock that I got, I would think, say as an adult, that really was amazing for me, was super simple. I was talking to a friend of mine. I was complaining about my marriage at the time. And my friend said to me, are you more interested in being right or being connected with your husband? That was the first time I'd ever heard that language. Now I've heard that a lot since then, but it was the first time anybody distinguished, what do you want, to be right? Or do you actually want what you really want, which is to be connected, right? And it stopped me in my tracks.
Wow.
And it changed my life forever. He happened to be talking about a particular way I could sort that out. I ended up doing that course and a whole bunch of other things, but it literally changed my life. And I've been working with that one. Honestly, that was the second piece of advice. Is I said something like, oh, they're lost, that they're not going to work with me. And a sort of a gray-haired mentor had said to me, no, it's yours. You ought to get curious. I was like, oh. And so the two of them I can see now are kind of in the same vein. And I can even feel like my heart moved about it. It's, it's one thing to say it's always good to be curious, but it really is like, stand where I'm standing and be clear and direct about that. But this idea of, really, do I want to be right? And how often I want to be right rather than go at what I really want. And that has been that's still the thing that is working me the most. Where am I being right? And do I know what really matters? And am I going for that in this moment? And that seems to be like my constant edge. So it was so great when I thought about being able to answer that question. So thank you. That's what I would say.
Yay.
I love that. And I was just thinking, we've heard different iterations of that same kind of thing. Like, am I going to
Right.
die on this hill? Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Is this the hill I'm going to die on?
Yeah.
Or, how really important it is for me to have the last word, the right word, the being right,
Right.
et cetera, versus the
Right.
learning and connection.
Somebody had it in a feedback session recently was, is this going to matter in 1 hour? Is this going to matter in 24 hours? Is this going to matter in a week? Is it going to matter in a month? And if you can work
Yes.
back from that, then, Gail and I both have had our own struggles with, but I'm right in this, relationship, right? It is something that I think couples and marriages go through, and a lot of the time it just doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
So
No.
I can't turn off the television that way. It's okay.
You know what? I'm pretty sure your message was meant for me today.
Oh,
And the reason I say that is because I think I needed to hear it today for a particular reason. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this was absolutely providence that we had you on today, because I needed to hear that myself, Whitney.
Right.
So you are amazing.
Yes.
I'm so excited about the work you're doing. And I hope that at one point we get a chance to work together, because I love your energy. I love what you've built. I love the passion behind it. I love the intention behind it. We feel so strongly and deeply about the work we do as well, and I can see it and hear it in you. And so it's always exciting to connect with someone who has that as well.
To reflect an image in a mirror. That's right.
Yes.
That's nice.
Yes, and this is not really all about this about you. I loved getting to talk about myself, but the weird thing was I wanted to ask you so much more about you. So I will be connecting, and you just radiate just goodness and energy, and it's been a privilege.
Well,
Thank
Whitney
you
Walpole,
so much.
thank you for being on our program.
Thank you for being a guest on Trailblazers, as you are.
Thank you. Yes.
And we will talk soon.